Thom Hartmann here on the best of the rest of labor and economic news. You need to know this. After the recent massive march on climate change, activists and protesters took over Wall Street. 3,000 people held a sit-in around the infamous Charging Bull statue and demanded an end to the economic system based on exploiting frontline communities, workers, and natural resources. Protesters say that the root of the climate crisis is capitalism itself, and they want the banksters to stop profiting off our planet's destruction. Rising temperatures, toxic water, mega droughts, and superstorms are some of the environmental risks of global warming, but these protesters wanted to shine a light on the economic causes and dangers of climate change. Profiteers on Wall Street are heavily invested in the fossil fuel industry, and they rake in more cash every time a company destroys a community with drilling. These oil and gas profits continue to make billionaires richer and help keep the working poor from gaining any economic ground. In return for all those profits, Wall Street's investments help finance the oil lobby's destruction of our planet, which is already having a much more devastating effect on the world's poor. The billionaires on Wall Street think they can afford to shield themselves from the dangers of a warming planet, but storms and droughts don't pardon those with large bank balances. They might not care about how their investments destroy the planet, but we do, and the Flood Wall Street protest brought our fight to their doorstep. Now we must keep the pressure up until they put our planet ahead of their oil profits. The Obama administration is standing up to corporate tax dodgers. Last week, the Treasury Department announced new rules that will make it harder for companies to use inversions to avoid paying their taxes. Although Congress refuses to act on corporations offshoring profits, President Obama and Treasury Secretary Jack Lew are doing what they can to stop companies from dodging their taxes. In a statement about the new rules, President Obama said, "We've recently seen a few large corporations announce plans to exploit this loophole, undercutting businesses that act responsibly and leaving the middle class to pay the bill. Treasury Department's new rules will prevent companies from using so-called hopscotch loans to move profits to overseas subsidiaries and block these inverted companies from getting tax-free access to foreign earnings. Congress has the power to reform the tax code and make corporations pay their fair share, but for the time being, they refuse to act. Thankfully, our president and our Treasury Secretary are doing what they can to make corporations pay their fair share." It may have taken some public pressure, but Google has finally dropped ALEC. Last Monday, the tech giant announced their plans to cut ties with the American Legislative Exchange Council. Their announcement comes only a few weeks after Microsoft also dropped the lobbying group, saying that ALEC's policies did not align with that company's renewable energy projects. Although there are numerous reasons why these corporations should disavow the group, Google's decision was also influenced by ALEC's anti-science views on global warming. It's about time that Google took a stand on ALEC's anti-science, anti-worker, anti-regulation policies. Many large corporations have dumped that lobbying group in recent years, and it's nice to see Google has finally done the same. There are only a few weeks before the November elections, and voters in Wisconsin are scrambling to get photo IDs so they can vote. Thanks to a last-minute ruling by a 3-judge panel on the 7th Circuit Court, election officials are working frantically to make sure eligible voters get an ID on time. Although state officials have tried to make the process easier by allowing voters to apply for a free ID without showing a birth certificate, that may still prevent some eligible voters from casting a ballot. For instance, Shirley Brown, one of the lead plaintiffs in the ACLU's lawsuit against the voter ID suppression law, was delivered by a midwife, so she lacks the documentation that the DMV requires to get a photo ID. The ACLU has filed a demand that the full appeals court rehear the case, arguing that there is simply not enough time to ensure that all voters will have the proper ID. They explained to the court, "It is not only unreasonable but also mathematically, logically, and physically impossible that by November 4th, hundreds of thousands of voters will learn about the need for ID, collect multiple required documents, get to a DMV office, and obtain the ID. 300,000 people in Wisconsin lack the identification needed to vote, and the DMV would have to issue about 6,000 IDs a day to serve all of them. As it is simply impossible, the full 7th Circuit must rehear the case and ensure that everyone has the right to participate in the democratic process." And finally, students in Denver are standing up for history. Last week, hundreds of high school students walked out of class to protest a decision by the Jefferson County School Board to limit history education to lessons that shine a positive light on American heritage. Subject matter would be limited to materials that, quote, promote citizenship, patriotism, essentials, and benefits of the free market system, respect authority, and respect for individual rights, end of quote. Students disagreed with the school board's decision to censor their education, and many teachers supported their decision by staying home as well. One high school senior who took part in the walkout said that protest is an important part of American history, quote, and if you take that away from us, you take away everything that America was built off of, end quote. And he is exactly right. Standing up to authority is how our nation was formed, and school boards should not be omitting that idea from our history books. Students in Denver are demanding a real history education, and they're learning the art of civil disobedience in the process. And that's the way it is for the week of September 29th, 2014. I'm Thom Hartmann on the Economic and Labor News.